Alright, what is up guys, it's boy Dorsh, and in this tutorial we'll be going over arrays. So array is one of the non-primitive data types within Java, just like a string. And within an array, arrays are pretty much a database storing type of thing. It stores numbers and stuff within the thing. So let's say you have a collection of items, right? Instead of doing like int I equals 0 and referencing int I2 equals 0, things like that, instead of doing that, you can keep them inside one collection of items. So to initialize an array, you want to use int. So an array can be any primitive data type, so you can't have a including a string, which is non-primitive, but it's an object. You can have an array of strings, right? So int that, we'll just call it I array, and there's multiple ways to initialize this. So if you do not know what numbers you're going to put inside, you do new int, and then inside here you put the number of items that you know you're going to have. So let's say I have 10, it can hold 10 numbers, but I don't know which numbers they're going to be yet, right? So I just put 10 here, right? So that initializes it without nums. I spelled this wrong. There you go. So without having nums inside. So when we print that out, the way you print out arrays is doing arrays.toString. And inside here you put the array name. The reason for this is if you print out normally, so now it just does 10 empty zeros, right? But if you print out normally, what will it print out? So let's just see. It prints out this weird thing, right? And what this is the memory address stored in the Java virtual machine of this array. So this array connects to that memory address. But if you make that into a string, however, you can do that. And you can also use a for loop to loop through this array, which I'll show you in a second. So basically that initializes the array. But there's another way you can also initialize arrays. So int, let's say I already know the numbers. So int I array 2 equals, and in this case you want to use curly brackets, right? These things right here. Inside here you put all your numbers separated by commas. So let's say I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? So now if you print out arrays dot toString, basically we want to convert this into a printable string. So I array 2. So now when we print this out, it should do 1 through 8. And that's what happens. So now we have a collection of items, but how do we use them and how do we access them, you know? The way you want to access arrays is, so let's say for the first array, since they're all zeros, we'll just skip that one, right? But for these right here, we want to do, let's say I want to access the number 4, right? I want to call out number 4. So let's find a way to print out the number 4 inside this array. So as you know, arrays always start at 0. As you might not know, but arrays, the index is always 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The way you want to call out an array is doing I array, and then inside the brackets you want to put which index you want to reference of this array. So in this case, since arrays start at 0, they go 0, 1, 2, 3. So 4 is at the third position, right? So when I put 3, it basically gets an int from the int array. It gets an integer at the spot number 3, which in this case is not this. That's number 2 because it starts at 0. So 3 actually would be one step ahead. And yeah, so once we do that, we should get the number. My bad. Referenced the wrong name, but it should return 4, and it does. If we want to change this number, so let's say let's say I do this, right? I array, let's say I change 5 to 90, right? So now, now we can see the normal array, so we can print out the normal one. Let me just print it out. So arrays.toString, you want to print out I array 2. And then you want to do the same thing down here. So if you guys can probably, assume, it'll change the 5th index, whichever number that is, and it'll put 90 in that slot instead. So in this case, our 5th index would be the number 6. So instead of number 6, you'll replace that with the number 90. So we can see this is before, and this is after. So let's just specify that here, before, and yeah. So this will be after, right? So you can kind of understand. So you can see right here, before, the number 6 was here, but now replace number 6 with 90. So that's pretty much how to access arrays and change their values, right? So once we do that, there are also a couple other things within an array. So there are a couple methods that are associated with arrays, and I'll be going over them. So basically, if you when you're printing out arrays, you don't want to have these brackets, these commas, things like that, right? You want to have it organized in a neat, formatted way. So in order to do that, you can create a simple for loop that goes through the array and prints it out. So you just do for int I equals 0, because you want it to start out at the 0 index, right? Because arrays start at 0. And how do you know the length of the array? Well, we obviously know this length is 10, but let's say I don't want to count these, right? Or let's just say I'm lazy, I don't want to look up here. I just want to do a simple way. Well, Java has done that for us, and that'd be I is less than I array 2. Let's just do 2 for now. And we can use all these methods that are associated with it. In this case, we want to do length. And this returns a length of that array. In this case, it will always be 1 greater than the index, because it gives us the actual length starting at 1. But arrays start at 0, so that's why we have to go from 0 to less than that. Otherwise, if we do less than or equal to, it'll create an error because it tries to access an index that does not exist. And that's called an out-of-bounds error. So let's just do I++, because we want to increment by 1. And after that, we can do, we can just print it out. And it depends on how you want to print it out. In this case, we just want to separate by a space. So we just do I plus a space. So it just brings out a string with I with a space, right? So once we, whoops, that was stupid. We want to reference the array, not just the number, not the index number. So I array 2, and then you want to put I inside here because that's the index we want to reference. So just like we did earlier, except it does it every single time. So it'll be a lot easier instead of having us to print it out separately every single time. Right, in this case, we want to not have a new line, we just want to have a space, right? So there we go. Here are all the elements in an array, printing it out in a pretty organized way, in my opinion. Basically using the .length method, right? So that's pretty much it for arrays. You can also have any other data type of arrays, like, and you'd call them out the same way, char array, have an array of strings, and then double, long, any type of array you can make it like that. And with these, you can use any of the operators, just referencing. As long as you reference this, you can't just reference an array and use an operator. Well, technically you can, but that's not what you intended to do, right? So that wouldn't be the case. And that pretty much wraps up our tutorial on arrays. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Peace.